Hello and welcome to the Everything's Black Mike YouTube channel. I'm Aaron Stokes, Newcastle United editor, and we're here this afternoon to talk about transfers. Now, at the time of recording, it's Friday afternoon. The transfer window shuts in just a week's time, and Newcastle United are trying to just sort of manoeuvre the final little bit of the jigsaw into place after a very, very good summer of incomings. Now, Eddie Howe spoke to the press on Friday morning and was asked about transfers, and he said that unless they get one or two injuries to a couple of players in the same position, he thinks that Newcastle United's incoming business for the summer is done. Now, a lot of fans, and I would count myself in this group, think that maybe just one more deal, getting it over the line and maybe adding a bit of cover to that squad would take it from really a grade A to a grade A plus for the summer. But you can't grumble with what Newcastle United have done in terms of bringing 4 senior players in for the first team. Obviously, they've also signed a couple of very, very promising youngsters who are going to potentially be in Eddie Howe's side for the next couple of years. But now you feel the attention is really, really turning towards getting some of these fringe players on very high wages and very lengthy contracts, getting them off the books before next Friday. So we'll start with Ryan Fraser, a player who we all knew was going to leave the club this summer. Eddie Howe made no bones about that earlier in the year, saying that he didn't have a future on Tyneside. He obviously got demoted to the under-21s at the back end of last season. Eddie Howe very, very reluctant to give many details as to why he was the man that had to suddenly play with the under-21s. He only did make a handful of appearances for Ben Dawson's side before ultimately, just sort of fading into the background at Tyneside. Now we know that he is going to Southampton. Southampton have made, no bones about their interest. They actually tried to sign Ryan Fraser back in January. They wanted to sign him for, a handful of million, a couple of million, £3 or £4 million. And ultimately Newcastle were hoping for closer to 10. You certainly won't see that type of money anymore. He will join Southampton on a season-long loan. We've already had Russell Martin, the Southampton manager, pretty much confirm that he's through the door on a season-long loan. Bit of a tricky one for Ryan Fraser. I think personally it's a very good move for him. I think he'll probably flourish if he can stay fit in the Championship. I think it's a good option for Southampton to have. But Newcastle United, as I say, his time it's been coming. The writing's been on the wall in terms of his career at Newcastle United, and I don't think there should be any surprise that he is going. Another player that Eddie Howe was asked about this morning was Javier Manquillo, the right back, 29 years of age. Another who's really fallen out of favour in recent months. Didn't play too much last season, although he was involved from the start in that FA Cup defeat to Sheffield Wednesday in January. Javier Manquillo, ultimately his future is in his hands. Eddie Howe doesn't like to force players out if they don't want to go, and I think he's deploying the same tactic that we've seen with the likes of John Joe Shelvey and Chris Wood, where he said, I want to keep you guys at the club, but if you want to go, I'm not going to stand in your way. And he looks like he's doing the same thing with Javier Manquillo. He said this morning, talking to the press, that he would like to see Manquillo stay at the club. He's trying to build a robust and deep squad for what's going to be a challenging campaign in 4 competitions. But if an offer comes in for Javier Manquillo, then Eddie Howe certainly isn't going to stand in his way and let him leave the club. Now, there's been minimal interest in him so far. There has attracted interest to a couple of Spanish clubs, heavily linked with a little reunion with Rafa Benitez at Celta Vigo, which is very, very, ironic, given that, Rafa Benitez wasn't too keen on signing him for Newcastle and sort of had to because they didn't really have the funds to sign anybody else at right back. He's been heavily linked with the move to Celta Vigo. You'd expect there'd be quite a few suitors. As I said before, only 29 years of age. You think if you can keep him fit, you've got a decent squad player there for a number of Spanish sides. Even lower level Premier League clubs would probably take him to fill a couple of places. Definitely in the Championship, if he was willing to take the pay cut and move down there, I think you'd be getting a really good player. But ultimately, I think his time should be up at Newcastle United. I think when they see the deal that they've done with Tino Livramento, who's going to come in and instantly be Kieran Trippier's backup, they've then got the return in Emil Kraft, who's got to come back from his bad ACL injury in the next couple of months. I think for Manquillo now, he's 4th choice. I think he should probably leave, and it was very, very telling. I thought the comments by Eddie Howe today, and I found it quite interesting to hear the Newcastle boss say that if Manquillo wants to say there's a place for him. So be very, very interesting to see how that one unfolds in the next couple of days. Then we move on to the likes of Isaac Hayden and Jeff Hendrick, who really are struggling to attract much interest. I mean, Isaac Hayden has been linked with a handful of Championship clubs this week, in fact, whereas Jeff Hendrick isn't really attracting too much interest after his loan spell at Reading. So on Isaac Hayden, as I said, linked to a handful of Championship clubs this week, Middlesbrough being one of them. We feel like it would be a very, very good move for Michael Carrick's side if they could get him through the door. Hayden's another one who, the future's been on the war from for a while. He missed out on Eddie Howe's 25-man squad when he first took over through injury. He was then shipped out on loan last season to Norwich City, who did have the option to buy him permanently should they come back up straight to the Premier League. They didn't. They finished mid-table. Isaac Hayden picked up quite a nasty knee injury, as he has done in a few recent seasons. Ultimately, he came back this summer to Darsley Park and trained with the youngsters after being told that there was sort of no future for him here. Jeff Hendrick's the same, a disappointing loan spell last season in the Championship with Reading, with them going down. They're now facing a load of financial difficulties, which is why they, decided against keeping him on in League One. You would imagine in the next couple of weeks, he will probably attract quite a bit of interest in the Championship. He's also been attracting a bit of interest in France, from what we hear. So another two players that you think will definitely move on in the next couple of days. Then after that, you're then probably going into some surprise territory, in the sense that there's probably a few players sort of on the edge and on the radar where you think they might go should suitable offers come in for them. One of those you could say is maybe Jamal Lascelles. He's, as of today, has been attracting interest in Besiktas, according to Sky Sports, which would be a very, very interesting move for the player. Turkey have got this reputation of signing sort of big names, and Galatasaray and Fenerbahce have done the same in recent years. That might be a move that interests him, but I think ultimately it's going to be similar to Javier Manquillo, in the sense that Eddie Howe has already said if Jamal Lascelles wants to stay at the club, he's got a place at the club. And even though Jamal Lascelles might not get that much game time this season behind Fabian Schär and Sven Botman, you certainly feel like there's a role for him to play here, especially being club captain, the influence that he has in the dressing room. And actually, I think the last couple of times he's played, he only got a handful of starts last season. I think he's done well. I think he's improved. I think he's another one who's quietly went under the radar under Eddie Howe and has sort of picked up his game, along with a load of other players in that squad. Another surprise one might be Matt Targett. We've obviously seen Lewis Hall come in for a season on loan. He's going to sign permanently next summer. Very, very interested to see now where that leaves Matt Targett. Is he still the second choice behind Dan Burn? Is he, now third choice behind Lewis Hall? You get the feeling that maybe if an offer comes in for Matt Targett and they can recoup close to what they paid for him only 18 months ago, I think, there might be an option for Newcastle United to do some business there. Southampton very, very heavily linked with him at the start of the season. He obviously played for the club during the younger years of his career. I'm not too sure how that would go down with the fans. It would probably split opinion. I think a lot of people still see Targett as a decent squad option. He hasn't really put a foot wrong since joining Newcastle United. He just got very, very unlucky with injuries, coupled with the fact Dan Burn actually, excelled in that left back role when not many people thought that he would, oust Matt Targett last season. That's one to maybe watch. I think if an offer comes in for him, it would be interesting to see how Newcastle United react. But we do know that they've been very, very good at recouping money for players that they've signed. Chris Wood being one, Jonjo Shelvey. They can get a deal similar to that, and someone's going to pay 15 million for Matt Targett, who could, as I said, drop down to your third choice left back. I think there is scope to do it. In terms of incomings, then, as we've spoke about, Eddie Howe insists that the Newcastle United are done. But this is Eddie Howe. We know that he likes to throw us off the scent, and I think the big thing that I keep going over in my mind is the fact that last summer it looked like they were done. It looked like they'd walked away from that deal for Alexander Isak, and all of a sudden Callum Wilson gets injured and bang, they're back at the negotiating table and bang, they're finding money down the back of the sofa to break the transfer record. I personally think, as I said on the Monday show with Andrew Musgrove, I think there's scope for one more. I think they can get one more over the line. For me, it would be a little bit more defensive cover. I think if Jamal Lascelles does happen to move away in the next week, I think it's an absolute given that they've got to go out and sign another central defender, given that it would only be Dan Burn and then the youngster Alex Murphy, who would be cover for Schär and Botman. I think there's scope there, and I think a couple of other fans maybe would like a little upgrade or a bit more cover on the right-hand side of Eddie Howe's attack. Andrew Musgrove is one of the fans who believes they maybe need a third-choice striker, a youngster who can come in and sort of fill in if Callum Wilson gets injured or Alexander Isak isn't in the team. Eddie Howe, though, as I said, insists that he thinks the business is done. But this is Eddie Howe, and we know that he sometimes likes to throw press and the fans off the scent. So it'll be very, very interesting to see what Newcastle United do in the next week or so. It's going to be very busy Either way, we'll have it all covered on Chronicle Live. We'll have more podcasts, more videos like this to come in the coming days. Thank you very much for watching. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll speak to you very soon.